Have you noticed how you don't own anything anymore? Not your music, not your movies, not the software you need to work. Everything's a subscription now. Adobe, Spotify, Netflix. Hell, some cars are locking your heated seats behind a paywall. It's not because it's expensive to deliver. It's not because the parts are rare. It's because if they let you own the tool, you wouldn't need the company. And that's the point. This isn't about technology. It's about control. Because capitalism isn't evolving with technology. It's trying to strangle it in its crib. Back in the 2010s, Jeremy Rifkin called it the zero marginal cost society, a world where the cost of creating, replicating, and sharing things drops so close to zero that profit itself starts to disintegrate. Think solar panels producing free energy after installation. Think open source software maintained by volunteers. Think 3D printed housing from local soil. These aren't distant hypotheticals. They're the early rumblings of a reality that breaks the price system itself. Rifkin saw it clearly. When the marginal cost of production approaches zero, the entire scaffolding of the profit model buckles. It's not just that selling becomes difficult. It's that the act of selling becomes unnecessary. If the sun powers your home, if your medicine is printed in your kitchen, if your knowledge is boundless and free, then what does the market have left to mediate? What value can it add except friction? And yet somehow, we're still stuck in a world where access is locked behind paywalls, where movies are deleted from platforms despite already being made, where software you bought yesterday stops working unless you keep feeding it your credit card. Why? Because capitalism requires scarcity. And when nature stops providing it, capitalism manufactures it. Welcome to the age of artificial scarcity, a world where abundance is real, but buried. Buried under licensing agreements, proprietary formats, rent-seeking patents, and subscription walls designed to simulate a constraint that no longer naturally exists. You don't buy the song. You lease the privilege of hearing it. You don't own the farm. You rent the fruit. Which brings us to Buckminster Fuller. Decades before Rifkin, before Silicon Valley, before open source anything, Bucky saw the contradiction. He knew the systems we'd built were no longer about utility. They were about justification, not making life better, but making life earnable. He called out the absurdity in plain language. We keep inventing jobs because of this false idea that everybody has to be employed at some kind of drudgery. So we have inspectors of inspectors, and people making instruments for inspectors to inspect inspectors. It wasn't cynicism. It was diagnosis. Because Fuller also saw what could come next. He called it ephemeralization, the idea that human systems could do more and more with less and less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. That's not sci-fi. That's what technology is for. That's what it wants to do. Lower input, higher output. Automation, miniaturization, decentralization, clean water from vapor, protein from precision fermentation, shelter printed from dirt and sunlight, knowledge coded into learning environments more adaptive than any classroom. But instead of letting technology liberate us, capitalism reroutes it to deepen dependence. Rather than reducing work, it invents new bullshit jobs to justify wage systems. Rather than reducing cost, it fragments platforms into endless tiers of gated access. Rather than using ephemeralization to dissolve toil, it twists it into new modes of managed addiction, attention cycles, branded necessity, algorithmic need. It doesn't free us. It retools itself to appear essential, even as its logic collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. And this is where Enlightenment socialism steps in. Not as ideology, but as design logic. It doesn't mythologize labor. It doesn't pretend markets are moral arbiters. It recognizes that when production costs vanish and labor becomes optional, profit is no longer an organizing principle. It's an obstruction. This is not a war of values. It's a confrontation between systems. One that thrives on rationing. One that thrives on release. We're standing at a civilizational threshold. On one side is a world still built around the myth of earning a living. A world that pretends dignity must be purchased, that survival must be conditional, that fulfillment must be scarce. On the other is a world that understands what Fuller meant when he said the true business of people should be to go back to school and think about whatever it was they were thinking about before somebody came along and told them they had to earn a living. Because that's the real nightmare for capitalism. Not that things become cheap, but that people become free. Free to explore, free to create, free to become. Not as a reward for labor, but as the default condition of being alive. And that freedom isn't a fantasy. It's physics. It's sunlight hitting a panel. It's food growing without toil. It's knowledge passed peer to peer without price. The conditions already exist. They've just been shackled. This isn't utopia. It's engineering. It's rationality catching up to reality. It's the Enlightenment finally finishing what is started. Technology has done its part. It's lowered the cost of survival to nearly nothing. Now it's our turn to build the systems that stop pretending scarcity is sacred, that stop locking abundance behind brand names and biometric toll booths, that refuse to sell what no longer needs to be sold. Profit is dying. And the question now isn't how to revive it. It's how to bury it and build something beautiful in its place. Something that doesn't extract. Something that doesn't punish. Something that doesn't need us afraid to function. Because buried beneath the rubble of collapsing profit is something eternal, a different kind of value, a different kind of life. And it's been waiting for us to remember. We were never meant to earn the right to live. We were meant to live and then do something with it.